missing Jackson County woman involving multiple law enforcement agencies now, and it continues. 25-year-old Sydney Sutherland was last seen jogging off Highway 18. Here's her photograph. She was jogging between Newport and Grubbs. Claire Kreis has been in Jackson County all day. She's joining us now with the latest on the search efforts there. Claire, what do we know about the search? How's it going? Has it turned?
It was an ordinary afternoon in August. Hot, still, quiet. A 25-year-old nurse laced up her shoes and went out for a run. The same run she took all the time, on the same empty roads outside her small Arkansas town. She never came back. Within hours, her family knew something was wrong. Within a day, hundreds of people were searching the fields for her. And within 2, they would learn the truth, a truth that had been standing among them the entire time. This is the story of Sydney Sutherland. Real quick before we carry on, drop a comment and let me know what city or country you're watching from and what time it is there right now. The 19th of August, 2020, began like any other day. The Sutherlands had just come home the evening before from a family trip to Destin, Florida, sun-tired and happy, the way you are at the end of a good summer. Sydney was unpacking, settling back into her routine, getting ready to return to work. That morning, she had already been to the gym, a full hour with her trainer. Her Ring camera caught her at home afterward, in her workout clothes, pulling things out of her car. Later, she drove over to her mother's house to drop off some mail. She told her mum, Maggie, that she was heading home to bake, brownies, maybe cookies, and that she wanted to fit in a run before the day was done. Maggie told her not to overdo it. It was hot out. She had already worked out once. But running was not just exercise to Sydney. It was how she cleared her head, a quiet hour to herself on an empty road. On a day like that, it was too tempting to pass up. "Love you," Sydney said on her way out the door. "I'll talk to you later. I love you too," her mother called back. Those were the last words they would ever say to each other. Sydney went home. She set up her Apple Watch to track the run. And a little after 2:30 in the afternoon, she stepped out onto County Road 41 and started jogging, the same route she always took, along State Highway 18, between the towns of Newport and Grubbs. A UPS driver passed her out there. He remembered her clearly because there was almost never anyone on those roads. No traffic, no walkers, just a few houses, a few farms, and a lot of open field. By late afternoon, Sydney's boyfriend, Alex, her partner of 4 years, who shared a home with her, was starting to worry. He had not heard from her. That, on its own, was strange. She was not the kind of person to go quiet. He called Maggie. Maggie had not heard from her either, not since she left the house that afternoon. He tried her phone. It went straight to voicemail. Her Snapchats had not been opened in hours. Her texts sat unanswered. For someone who talked to her mother several times a day, the silence was wrong in a way that is hard to explain, but impossible to ignore. They ran through the possibilities. Maybe she had fallen. Maybe she had turned an ankle on one of those long, empty stretches and was sitting somewhere waiting for help. But the longer the phone went unanswered, the harder that was to believe. As the lights started to fade and the temperature dropped, they called the police. And in a town where everyone knows everyone, the search did not start small. It started with everything they had. That first night, they searched until the early hours of the morning. They started again a few hours later, at first light. And then it grew. By 7 the next morning, the effort had swelled far beyond the family. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office, the Arkansas State Police, the Arkansas Department of Correction, U.S. Marshals, the FBI, police departments from 3 surrounding towns, and behind all of them, the people of Jackson County, neighbors, classmates, strangers, who simply showed up. By that first full day, well over 100 volunteers were out on the roads and in the fields. Before it was over, That number would climb to around 300. They walked the ditches. They drove the county roads up and down, looking for anything out of place. A patch of weeds rolled flat, tire marks where a truck had turned around in the dirt. Phone pings from the carrier placed Sydney in a general area, not far from where the UPS driver had seen her, and that is where they concentrated. Among the searchers was a local farmer, a well-known face in the county, third generation, worked thousands of acres, the kind of man everyone knew or knew of. He had been a couple of years ahead of Sydney in school. During a break, Maggie spoke with him directly. He told her he had seen Sydney out running that day. But nothing had looked wrong, he said. She was not hurt. No one was following her. She was just running.
Search for a missing Jackson County woman involving multiple law enforcement agencies now, and it continues. 25-year-old Sydney Sutherland was last seen jogging off Highway 18. Here's her photograph. She was jogging between Newport and Grubbs. Claire Kreis has been in Jackson County all day. She's joining us now with the latest on the search efforts there. Claire, what do we know about the search? How's it going? Has it turned up anything?
Yeah, Bob, County Road 41 is the last place Sydney Sutherland was seen. This is actually a typical jogging route for her. Now it's filled, you can see, filled with people driving up and down, searching, trying to bring her back home safe. From the sky to boots on the ground, law enforcement from across the county and even the state are exhausting every option to find 25-year-old Sydney Sutherland.
We're working every aspect that we can think of.
According to Jackson County Sheriff David Lucas, Sutherland was last seen around 2:30 on this county road near her home.
She was on foot, out walking and jogging. We received that information from a UPS driver this morning that saw her.
Since then, no one has heard from her, and no one knows what happened to her.
We're not ruling anything out.
Lucas says she did have her phone, and they've tried to track its last known location.
With the phone pings that we've been getting from AT&T, plus the information from the people that said they saw her, it's pretty much going to be in that general area, and that's where we're concentrating the most right now.
It's not just police and sheriff deputies searching the fields for anything out of the ordinary.
Where somebody might have turned around out in a field with a truck or backed up in it, weeds that are rolled over.
Hoyt Brown is helping with the search efforts on his day off.
It's helping people when they need help.
He says he can't believe something like this happened in this small rural community.
I was kind of shocked.
Now he just hopes his and all the other volunteers' efforts break some ground on Sutherland's disappearance. So this area behind me is actually the staging area for the search. Sheriff Lucas says there are no solid leads at this time. So we ask if you know anything or if you have seen her or even think that you have seen her to please call the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. Reporting live in Jackson County.
By now, an entire county was searching for a young woman most of them had never met. But to understand what they were really afraid of losing, you have to know who Sydney was. She had grown up right there in Grubbs, the youngest of three, born to Maggie and Dion Sutherland. Her two older brothers, Tyler and Sam, were fiercely protective of their little sister. But it was Sydney and her mother who were closest. Best friends, really. Everyone describes the same person. Bright, outgoing, a big smile that arrived before she did. She had graduated an outstanding senior, and she had become a registered nurse at the Harris Medical Center in Newport. Her best friend, Jordan, said Sydney always seemed to know exactly what a person needed, and exactly when they needed it. Away from work, she loved long walks with her dogs, working out, shopping, and time with her young nieces, who did not call her Aunt Sydney. They called her Aunt Sassy. And there was a line in her high school yearbook that the people who loved her keep coming back to. The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. They say that was simply who she was. That is who the county was searching for. And as the second day wore on, the search began to turn up things no one wanted to find. The first was her phone. It was found on the ground, undamaged, less than a quarter of a mile from her own home. A phone that a young woman would never simply drop and leave behind. Then came a smaller thing, and somehow a worse one. Maggie, down on her hands and knees along the roadside, found a single white bead. She knew it instantly. It was from her daughter's bracelet. Anyone who was not out searching was holding vigils. The whole town had come to a standstill, and underneath the hope, in the pit of everyone's stomach, the feeling was growing that this was not going to end the way they were praying it would. Sydney was 5'3". She weighed just over 100 pounds. If someone had wanted to hurt her out on one of those empty roads, it would not have taken much. No one wanted to say that out loud. But everyone was thinking it. On Friday, August the 21st, 2 days after she disappeared, the search ended.
Ending for a search for a missing Jackson County woman. The Jackson County Sheriff confirming the body of 25-year-old Sydney Sutherland has been found.
Her body was found buried in a shallow grave in a field, not far from where hundreds of people had been searching. The medical examiner later determined that Sydney had died of multiple blunt force injuries. She had also been assaulted. They searched the ground she used to cross, and found there what no search should find, a silence where a daughter used to be. Sheriff Lucas, a man who had known the family for years, who had watched Sydney grow up alongside his own daughters, said this case hit him harder than any he had worked.
I do know the family, know them well. I know Sydney, watched her grow up. She went to school with my girls.
It's all about Sydney and remembering her.
Honoring the light that went dark.
One thing about this community is when a tragedy happens, everybody comes out full force.
It's been just days.
Sydney's our family.
Days since Sydney Sutherland went for a run and never came home. In just days, this community has been without the girl this crowd says was a friend to all. But instead of focusing on how she left this earth, they focus on what she left behind.
She didn't have to have recognition. She didn't have to be in the front. She didn't have to be recognized for anything that she did. She was just a silent servant.
She was a firecracker. She was sassy. She was loving. She was caring, compassionate.
From candle to candle and memory to memory, folks say tonight Sydney Sutherland was honored.
Rejoicing with us, and she's in a better place.
But even as the grief set in, the investigation was already moving. Because that same Friday evening, before most people even knew a body had been found, the police made an arrest. The man they arrested was the farmer. His name was Quake Llewellyn. He was 28 years old, married, with 3 stepchildren, a third-generation farmer who looked after some 6,000 acres. His family had even been named Jackson County's Farm Family of the Year back in 2016. He was, by every outward measure, a known and trusted member of that community. He and Sydney had even been Facebook friends once. The two knew each other, at least in passing. He was the same man who had joined the search, the same man who had joined the online group set up to find her, the same man who had stood among the volunteers, offered comfort to her family, and hugged Maggie.
And I said, Quake, can you tell me anything? What was Sydney doing? You know, did you see anything unusual? Did you meet anybody unusual? He goes, no, she was just running. I said, you don't have anything you can tell me? No. She was just running. And he just kind of gave me a little hug.
He gave you a hug?
Gave me a hug.
What did that feel like in that moment?
It was something felt odd. I walked back over to the group and I was like, something's wrong.
What makes this case so unsettling is how Llewellyn was caught. Because in a sense, he turned himself in. He walked into the police and told them he might have been one of the last people to see Sydney alive. He put himself into the investigation as a witness. Then he and his father gave detectives permission to search his pickup truck, and the moment they looked at it, they saw blood on the tailgate. From there, it unraveled quickly. Data from his phone placed him in the area where Sydney's phone had been found. Her body had been buried near his own farmland. Security footage from his property showed his truck leaving that afternoon and coming back a while later with a fresh dent in it. Investigators recovered clothing he had worn, tucked into a laundry basket at his mother's house. A dark shirt with strands of blonde hair on it, and a pair of black and pink shorts, among other items. The story he eventually told investigators went like this. He said he had been driving out to check the wells and the rice fields when he passed Sydney walking along the gravel road. He said he drove past her, then turned his truck around, and claimed that by the time he came back, the dust from the road had blinded him. He said he felt her hit the truck. He said he panicked, afraid he would be in trouble. And so, by his own account, he put her in the truck, drove to a field, and buried her after assaulting her. But that account leaves a question hanging in the air, and the investigators heard it too. If it was an accident, why did he turn the truck around? The state's position was that Llewellyn saw Sydney, deliberately turned back, and struck her on purpose, then abducted, assaulted, and buried her.
28-year-old Quake Llewellyn has now been arraigned on charges of capital murder, rape, and kidnapping. Those last two charges are new. Officials now say he not only killed Sutherland, but that he also abducted and assaulted her last Wednesday. Llewellyn has not entered a plea in his case. THP 11 will continue updating the story online and on the air.
Llewellyn was charged with capital murder, rape, kidnapping, and abuse of a corpse. He pleaded not guilty. His wife filed for divorce. Police were clear that she had had nothing to do with any of it, and no idea her husband was capable of anything like this. It seems almost no one did. The case moved slowly the way these cases do. A forensic psychologist evaluated Llewellyn and found him competent to stand trial and competent at the time of the crime. If it went to trial, he faced the death penalty. Because of how heavily the case had been covered, a judge ruled it could not get a fair jury in Jackson County, and the proceedings were moved to Newport. Then, prosecutors and the Sutherland family reached a decision together. The death penalty would come off the table, and the kidnapping and abuse of corpse charges would be dismissed. In exchange, Llewellyn would plead guilty to capital murder and rape. The family wanted justice, but they also needed it to be over. Amy Lovevan, the mother of Sydney's boyfriend, said she hoped he would not be executed, that spending the rest of his life in prison felt like the heavier punishment. She admitted she hated him, a word she said she had never used about anyone in her life, and that one day, for her own peace, she would have to find a way to let that go. On October the 1st, 2021, Quake Llewellyn stood in a courtroom and pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison, with no possibility of parole. It had been 408 days since Sydney went for her run. Before the sentence came down, Maggie stood up to speak, and she asked the man who killed her daughter to look her in the eyes. She told him Sydney was not his to take. She told him the hands he had hugged her with were the same hands he had used to kill her child.
Any last words? Any regrets?
Today, a judge agreed to a plea deal that will send the man accused of killing a Jackson County woman to prison for the rest of his life.
Today, we have waited 408 days for Quake Llewellyn to be held accountable for my daughter's senseless murder.
Maggie Sutherland says she never has to worry about Quake Llewellyn again in a deal made to spare his life. On Friday, Llewellyn pled guilty to capital murder and rape, a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Llewellyn's defense team tells me the death penalty could have been likely if it had gone to trial.
Sydney's family chose life to offer us that, and I think that's always the best way to go.
The defense calls it a moment where Llewellyn owned up to his actions.
I wanted to accept responsibility for what he had done.
Tammy Watson, Llewellyn's distant cousin, left court in tears.
I feel so sad for Sydney's family.
Watson says her heart is broken because Llewellyn's parents lost their son today, too.
Quake's mother and father, they have been through so much.
They're the ones that said, go in there and you tell them the truth.
Quake Llewellyn has answered for his horrendous actions.
Maggie can go home with the last word.
Her funeral drew so many people that it was streamed live, so no one who loved her would be left out. And then, instead of dwelling on how she left, they turned toward what she left behind. There is a scholarship now, in her name, for Arkansas students going into the medical field, the work she loved. It grew into a foundation. A nurse who spent her life helping people is still, in a quiet way, helping them.
3, 2, 1.
Every year, people lace up their shoes and run in her memory, most of them in her favorite color, pink. The event is called Finish Sydney's Run. The distance is 8.19 miles, August 19th, the day she went out and did not come back.
I literally would just kind of replay over and over in my mind, Sydney didn't get to finish this.
Danielle Wright grew up with Sutherland and her family, and now she says she's going the extra mile to honor the nurse who loved a lot more than just running. It's all a part of a social media challenge called Finish Sydney's Run, going the distance and tagging others across the state to do the same.
It does not have to end right here with her run. We can continue to do the things that Sydney loved to do.
Wright says with every step on this 8.19-mile run, she thinks of the friend who didn't make it home from hers.
Her spirit is just soaring through every run, through every Facebook share. Her story is being told, and people are wanting to know, who is Sydney?
So Wright says she hopes others will run too, striding every day to be more like Sydney Sutherland.
The overpass near where she ran was renamed in her honor. And that single white bead, the one Maggie found in the dirt, on her hands and knees, in the worst days of her life, Maggie wears it now. On a bracelet, on her own wrist, a piece of her daughter she carries everywhere. Her friend Melanie put it simply. Sydney was about the best of what any of us could hope to be. They could not keep her, so they kept her light, in every mile, in every open hand, the gift she found, still given, mile by mile. Thank you for staying with me right to the end of this story. If you'd like to support the channel and help me keep bringing you true crime documentaries that are carefully researched and told with respect, go ahead and leave a like, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Every bit of support means more than you know.